Hello, everyone. Welcome, my neighbors in New York City, and in the world, in the United States. Welcome,
Congresswoman, thank you
welcome.
for being here with me tonight.
We're
Thank you for
covering
having me.
Let me start by
the
just a
interview.
lot of people, not just in New York, but across the country, there have been a lot of takes.
We're covering the interview on MSN with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, partially, and other clips of other interviews. There's a big worry amongst uh, the establishment that the Democratic Socialists of America and also the left flank of the party is gaining too much momentum and has to be stopped. And this is the article from The Hill that's arguing that um, House Democrats, this is the article from The Hill. Every news agency is covering this. The rise of the left flank of the Democratic Party. House Democrats brace for headaches with growing left wing. The election of a trio of far left candidates in New York primaries could create headaches for House Democratic leadership, determined to stage a unified and effective pushback to President Trump should the party retake the chamber. So unified means fall in line, do things how they want to be done, but they haven't resisted or fought against Trump now. So why should everyone fall in line with the leadership of the Democratic Party if they haven't really led effectively? Right? President Trump should be a party to retake the chamber. Recent years under Republican leadership have shown the power a small but united group of House members can wield within their party. And many House Democrats say they are wary of replicating that chaos and seeing their own plans repeatedly brought to a standstill. I hope that it doesn't happen because I hope we're not like the MAGAs. You can't criticize the MAGAs and then be like MAGAs, said Representative Gregory Meeks, who, if the Democrats take the House, will be poised to chair the House Foreign Affairs Committee. While Meeks has stifled any competition, any grassroots movement, anyone, he hasn't done much in Queens. He supported Cuomo instead of supporting um, the Democratic nominees or Armandani. He has a whole host of things that he has done that are bad. So that's why we have the most unproductive Congress right now, and the Republicans are all disorganized because of that. We shouldn't be that. We want to be the opposite of that. That's not who we should be. So I hope by looking at the examples, we're not trying to be what they are. You got to be something different. Voters selected three candidates endorsed by New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, toppling two progressive incumbents in the state where the Democratic primaries also ensure they were sent to Congress. Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier, who defeated Congressional Hispanic Caucus Chair Adriano Espaillat, and Claire Valdez are both Democratic Socialists, while Brian Lander, former Democratic Socialist of America member, pushed out Progressive Representative Dan Goldman. The fascinating part to me is Adriano Espaillat is a progressive Democrat. Dan Goldman is a progressive Democrat. Representative Mike Lawler said. So out of all the people they're interviewing the moderates, Mike Lawler, all of this, and I'm going to explain to you why they're interviewing them and not interviewing other people, right? About this worry. They formed a new group, and I'm gonna get into it, right? They formed a whole new group, right? Um, these are not moderates. These are not centrists. Uh, these are not. They yet they that was not good enough for the socialists. Some progressives said they felt really bio by the victory, seeing a chance to push for border policies in the new Congress. I think a lot of times people come into office, and particularly I would say at the leadership levels, there's this call for moderate because we're a big tent. But if a big tent is representing people, no matter what district you're from, that wants universal health care, that wants a higher minimum wage, that wants universal child care, all of those things, then we shouldn't be moderating. We should be going for those big policies and helping people see that it's actually really popular in districts across the country, said Representative Pramila Jayapal, who previously served as the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And so having the ability to form a voting bloc bigger voting bloc and a stronger voting bloc, which is how we got Build Back Better passed in the House when I was the chair of the Progressive Caucus, allows us to continue to push for truly transformative policies. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who is in line to be Speaker if Democrats retake the House, had endorsed Espaillat and Goldman, but said the party needs to come together once the new Congress is convened. In a moment like this, we really have to move forward together on the governing side in all hands on deck fashion because we're dealing with a level of extremism that Donald Trump and the Republicans unleash on the American people that is unprecedented, he said during an appearance on MS Now the day after the election. But the thing is, they haven't been able to show what their leadership looks like, right? So the article continues. Under Republican leadership, the House Freedom Caucus has been a continual thorn in the side of Speaker Mike Johnson, with members regularly scuttling votes as a form of protest. At other times, active votes were held open for long stretches while the Senate Speaker made backroom deals to gain support on bills lingering on the floor. It's a position Johnson found himself in after the GOP required numerous ballots to select former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, only to later oust him. The Freedom Caucus was in part able to wield such power because the Republicans raised a thin majority in the House. The ability of the newcomers to do the same to a Democratic leader would likely depend on the vote margins in the chamber. On the Democratic side, internal division have been less formalized, though some of the most progressive members of Congress have banded together as the Squad. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, among those who gave the group its nickname, said there is always room for more members. We always say that the Squad is anyone who wants to be part of it. And I think that I'm just really excited to see that we have such a dynamic candidates that are going to be blazing their own path and their own trail when they come here, she told reporters Wednesday. But she acknowledged Big Tents are fraught with tensions. When we talk about the Democratic coalition and the Big Tent, I think sometimes people forget that it's a messy work. A Big Tent means we don't love each other 100% of the time. It doesn't mean that we all get along 100% of the time, she said. But what it means is that we all acknowledge that we need each other and that the challenges of rising fascist regime require us all to be in a coalition with one another. And what coalition means is that we know that we're not all in the same group. We all acknowledge it, she said, adding that acknowledgement is also what drives us to be successful. Others, however, said there has been too much hand wringing over the victories of the three candidates in a liberal bastion. I think everyone's reading New York City right now. You know, we're hearing an awful lot of people, these districts, said Representative Jim Hines, noting New York victories by more mainstream Democrats. So, since I live 45 minutes from the place, I would tell you that New York is unique. And so clearly, in urban areas where younger people, there is an upswelling of emotion and demands for change and faster solutions to problems. I would not draw a parallel, though, with the Freedom Caucus. I mean, my sense is that the other than maybe the most exotic members who say some things that I think are little representable. I think these are people who are really dedicated to addressing the pain of the working class or of less affluent people, he said. They seem to be more practical than the Representative Thomas Massey, who wants a government that basically, you know, protects the borders and that's it. Abelia Chevrolet has apologized for the division uh, caused by her past social media posts, some of which have now been deleted. That includes a reference to using the American flag as a napkin, while at another point she simply wrote F. Kamala Harris. Representative Glenn Ivey and also downplay the risk of any future division. We already have AOC. It's not like we're introducing a new exotic species into the House Democratic Caucus. He told the Hill using a nickname for Ocasio Cortez. So I think they certainly found a way to manage it when Pelosi was Speaker. I think we'll continue to do that because the opposition to Trump will be more than unifying force. If we take the House back, that'll be a big focus and a common mission for all of us. Others said the new members, like all who get elected to Congress, will be in for a reality check once they arrive. Anyone coming to Congress is thrust into a dynamic that they have never experienced before, said Representative Becca Ballet, saying she was just discussing with another new member how they had no idea what I was getting into. This is so different in trying to figure out power works and operates and how you build coalitions. So all of the new crop of candidates coming in, there's going to be a steep learning curve for them in the same way there is for everybody else. But she cautioned that she does not want to replicate the Freedom Caucus on our side because it has made the place completely and totally dysfunctional. And we are not delivering for Americans. So I don't think that's what's going on here to happen because I think they're running to actually get things done. That's part of the progressive movement to actually deliver for people, make life better for people. I believe the Freedom Caucus came out of a sense of we want to break government so it doesn't work, to grind things to a halt. So I think the force is different. Valente, Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia said the members will swiftly learn that coalition building is part of the job. There's new energy in the equation when the new Congress starts. But at the same time, I think even new members quickly realize that if they want to get things done, they have to build relationships and you have to get to know each other and you have to also learn compromise and how to have an impact. So it wouldn't be surprising if there are, bumps at the start as people begin their learning process of being a member, he told The Hill. Others also thought new members might gain new perspectives after meeting colleagues who run in less solidly blue districts. My hope is that when they get to Congress and they meet some of our frontline members, they see how hard it is to flip districts and create a majority, and they will be part of a greater team. And I'm going to hold on to hope about that, said Representative Veronica Escobar, whose district abuts the U.S.-Mexico border. Another potential point of contention is whether the three newly elected members will back Jeffries for leader. While Lander has said he will back Jeffries, Avila Chevalier and Valdez have not yet made those commitments. When a photo of the Jeffries flashed across the screen at Valdez's election night party, it spurs boos from the crowd and chants of "You're next." But J.J. Paul waved away concerns that Jeffries will struggle to gain the backing of the conference. Look, that is the job of the person who's vying for a speaker, is to win people over. And sometimes that involves making deals, she said. But I think that first of all, you can't beat somebody with nobody. And I'm not hearing rumors of anyone running against Hakeem Jeffries for speaker. So this is where we set off the interview with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Right? This is where we set. I just set a little bit of groundwork, a little bit of background, so you understand what's going on, why they're fighting amongst the Democrats and amongst the Republicans because of the primaries that were won in New York. So this leads us to the interview with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That was a lot more generous and a lot more compassionate for the new members that are coming in to Congress, right? She had a lot more compassion for them. All right, let's hear what she has to say. So she was on, it's a 24-minute interview. All right, so hang tight. Young socialist upsets King of Queens, shocking Democratic establishment. Red alert. This was when she originally won the first time around. And so not
Start by just a lot of people, not just in New York, but across the country, there have been a lot of takes, shall we say, are trying to make sense of what the elections meant. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Congresswoman, thank you for being here with me tonight.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Let me start by just a lot of people, not just in New York, but across the country, there have been a lot of takes, shall we say, are trying to make sense of what the elections meant, what they mean for the Democratic Party. What do you think they mean?
I think that these elections mean, of course, they are reflections of the constituencies and communities that elected them and that rendered them. And I can say absolutely, at least in the city of New York, voters are just really ready for a Democratic Party that stands for something and has a very strong agenda to make our lives easier, to tackle corruption, to lower costs, to make healthcare a right for every American to raise wages, to make unionizing easier in the workplace. And they want to make a forceful statement in how badly they want to see us fight for that. And I think that in any robust year for Democrats, I believe you're going to see an expansion of a party and a deepening of our commitment. And so I actually think that these results are a very good sign for November. To your point, when I was elected in 2018, an election like mine.
So, in other words, people are hungry for change. People are hungry for a difference in the party. People are hungry for new blood, new people with new energy, and that represents their values and their point of views. So, to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this is an excellent opportunity to change the whole establishment and change everything that's happening. She has become a lot
where
more
voters were willing
better at
to
communicating.
really, trade in someone that was supposed to be the presumptive next Speaker of the House in my predecessor, and trade that in for also a Democratic socialist, a new organizer at that time. I think that is actually an indicator of places in other parts of the country willing to elect Democrats, even if the politics are not the same, even if those communities don't align with those same exact.
So she's saying she was the first Democratic socialist to be elected into office. I mean, it was also Bernie Sanders, right? He identifies as a Democratic socialist, right? Per se. So he led the way. Now Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is in there, and there's many more members now joining, and so she's saying it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that's happening, right? A new thing that's happening, a new day in Congress.
Agendas, they are willing to take a chance for a better future. And so I don't think that people should be seeing this as a zero-sum game. I think they should be seeing it as encouraging for November.
It's
interesting because even in the state of New York, and you alluded to this, I mean, Michael Lasher, you probably don't share every opinion or position with him. You definitely don't share every position, I don't think, with Richie Torres on a number of things. Both of them won in primaries that night. I mean, Michael Lasher in a very competitive one. Do you think this is because, and I just played some of what people on the right wing are saying on television, that this is an over-torquing of the rise of democratic socialism and not enough of a focus on the broad people who won? Or how do you see that? Because you're a democratic socialist yourself.
I mean, I think that the one thing that we know is that the Republican Party's brand is fear. And they have to constantly churn what they want people to be afraid of socialists, to be afraid of immigrants, to be afraid of women, to be afraid of. They constantly want Americans in fear of somebody, because if you are not afraid of.
Yeah, fear mongering. They want people to be afraid of a boogeyman underneath your bed, which is usually immigrants, democratic socialists, minorities. What's Trump using? The Somalis and in California, in Minnesota, other people in California, fear mongering, making it scary that, oh man, the world is going to collapse if you allow these people to take charge. But a lot of these ideas are very popular, and a lot of people support the ideas of democratic socialism.
Someone who is your neighbor, you're going to realize who's actually pickpocketing you. And that is
the millionaires, billionaires.
The large corporations that are engaged in profiteering and jacking up your prices for no good reason. It's going to be in this administration that is engaged in record levels of swindling, thefts, tariffs,
right there,
your housing. And so this is kind of their new thing of the day. But I think that people are feared out. I think that everyone's nerves are shot. in constantly being taught and told of what country, person, community to be afraid of. And they just want a solution.
Exactly.
They want their groceries to be more affordable.
Exactly.
They want to figure out how we're going to get health care. They want our housing to get under control. And
Trump promised this. This was his campaign. I'm going to lower your groceries. I'm going to make life more affordable. I'm going to bring jobs to America, manufacturing, all types of stuff that he promised. He's going to bring coal back. He promised so much and has not delivered on the majority of things. No new wars. We have new wars. It's like he broke every single one of his promises. So now these other members are actually going to keep their promises, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has for her constituents, which, for full disclosure, I live in her district.
I think that we're ready for an affirmative vision and we're ready for an affirmative agenda.
You talked about this week kind of how the fear-mongering, you had deja vu, I think is how you described it. And you just alluded to that and what you just said now. What advice are you giving, would you have for these new members who are coming in and are already being painted in a certain way? And I want to talk about them too, but what advice do you have for them about how to get things done while still shaking up the system at the same time?
Yeah, I think new and incoming members have no shortage of advice that's being given to them.
Well, but you lived it.
Yes,
you lived it in a very different way.
Yes, and I mean, I'll get to them, but I actually think the more important advice that I would give would be to my incumbent colleagues, which is you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy by deciding who these young women are before you've met them. And if you are already panicking and sending little messages in your group chats about how these people need to be reined in and tamped down and shown their place, you are creating the antagonistic dynamic that we do not need. These are two young, talented, intelligent women that got elected against
hard.
All odds, against millions of dollars. Perhaps there is something we can learn from them.
Yeah, they took on special interests. They took on AIPAC. They took on the Israel lobby. They took on the big war lobby. They took on the pharmaceutical companies. They took on everyone that was spending money and pumping money into these elections or lobbying for the congresswomen. And in this Espaillat case, big real estate, Reynoso, AIPAC donors also in the Reynoso race. There was so much money being pumped into these races, millions of dollars that were being pumped into these races. I'm talking about a large, huge amount of money into the New York primary. So if it doesn't matter, if it's not important like the rest of the Democratic caucus claims, why were they pumping so much money into these races? To defeat the people that were trying to get in, right?
The people chose them, and democracy and the Democratic Party is about what the people pick. It is not about any elected official or any leader, and I believe that. There are...
Another thing is that people don't own their positions. When the electorate shifts, the district that you live in shifts, and there's a change in views or ideas, you have to be a legislator. You have to listen to the people. You're there as a representative of the people. You're there, you have your own views, but then the people also speak and share their views. And so in the end of the day, you have to go with the people. Right?
And I want to ask you about this because I think they are being painted in a certain way. And Darylisa, specifically, who is going to be a member of Congress, I think people should recognize they are going to win in these districts.
It's owned by the people.
She has said a couple of things, and I think for people who are watching right now, I just want to remind them of that. She attended a pro-Palestinian rally in Times Square the day after the Hamas attacked Israel. She said she was worried about an outsized reaction that cost thousands of people their lives. She has not backed away from attending that rally. She deleted a Twitter account that had a number of posts that called for the abolishment of police and prisons, According to CNN in 2021, this is what there's a reference to. She posted, "A world without borders, just like a world without prisons or police, is possible and necessary and the only moral way forward." She's again, has said those posts don't reflect who she is today. You do not speak for
People
her,
change.
you speak for yourself. And I know she's tried
Exactly, but people change, people's views change. You might be younger, you say things that you don't really believe and you realize you're wrong. And she apologized for her tweets. And how many times do people want to hear an apology? Over and over and over. They want her to apologize. She already apologized more than 5 times in every interview. That's all they ask her. So at what point do they say, you know what, let's move on and let's look at what she's going to do and what's her platform? And she's already in, so what are we going to do?
Distance herself. She's probably under a greater level of scrutiny she's ever been in her life. But does any of that give you pause?
I think that, as you said, she has indicated that she has regret over the way that she issued those statements. And
she's showing a conscience.
I genuinely believe that the gravity and the responsibility of this role has a way of inhabiting you. And I genuinely believe that we have to give people the opportunity to occupy their beliefs within the gravity of becoming a duly elected member of Congress. And I think that in the process of running for election, in the process of getting to know your constituents, it's very different than when you're only speaking as an activist or years ago or whatever that may be. But I think where we are right now is that the people of New York's 13th district have elected her. And she's
elected. She has been voted in. They want her in there. I mean, there's still going to be the general election in November in New York, but the majority of people in that district vote Democrat. So more chances are she will be winning in the general in June. In November. She just won in June the primary, and also Claire Valdez overwhelmingly won a mandate from the people for change, for people to have different services and constituent services, and you got to give her a chance. You got to give both of them a chance, Claire Valdez and Darry Lisa, to prove what they can do, to prove how they carry themselves. Give them a chance, and then we can see they were just elected. Give them a chance. When we have a president that tweets all day, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock at night, 24 hours a day, he's tweeting at all random hours, all types of heinous stuff, all types of AI stuff, all types of craziness, and no one ever says, only a small group of people call him out on it. Republicans don't call him out on it. Rarely, when it's so heinous that they have no choice but to call him out.
She is responsible and has absolutely, I think, expressed a sense of responsibility in how she wants to lead. And so, again, I would say, I think it's important to not issue a verdict before these folks arrive. And, I went through the same thing. I will never forget. I had this moment. There's, everyone sees the floor of the United States House of Representatives.
They haven't even arrived. They haven't even set foot, and they're already opposing them and speaking bad about them and saying what horrible people they are, without having met them in person or know what they stand for, even check their platform, check their websites to see what kind of people they are and who do they represent and what are they willing to do for the people, right? All I know is they don't take any corporate money. They don't take any money from only small donors, only the people. So the people put them there. The people paid for their campaigns. So give them a chance to do their thing.
Representatives on C-SPAN or whatever when we're casting our votes. But there are these little rooms attached to that floor, and it's known as a cloakroom. And in the cloakroom is where members can rest in between votes, or if you need to get a snack or something. And they have televisions there. And I remember in my first term, I was sitting down on one of the couches, and there was this big television screen, and they were going on and on about, the way that they were clipping something that I said out of context to look extreme and to look far more inflammatory than what it was, and most importantly, who I am. And I remember sitting next to a congressman, my colleague, a Democrat, sitting next to me on the same couch. And he was looking up at that television screen in disgust and just shaking his head. And I was sitting there right next to him. He had never once struck up a conversation with me, but he had made a judgment and determination of who I was. And
that's usually what happens with stereotypes and profiling of people based on what they hear from other people, rumors, and all types of behavior that happens even in Congress. And so she's recounting her first walking into Congress and her experience within Congress that she has never spoken about, how badly she was treated by the Democratic caucus. Right? So let's keep listening to Alexandria Cortez's first interview after the New York Democratic primaries on MSN.
It was incredibly dehumanizing. I was met with so much hostility and cruelty.
It was very cruel and hostile environment, right? Hostile work environment. Everyone, make sure you hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the follow button. Support the channel. You can support it with, monetary contributions as much as you would like. And also hit the like, follow, share button. Even if you don't agree with me, comment below. And so maybe I could share your comments.
By the Democratic caucus when I was first elected. And I think that it created so much more antagonism than what was necessary in that time. And so I think that both ends of this relationship require work, right? Both ends require a stepping up and a certain magnanimity for us all to get what we want done. I'm an unabashed progressive, and I want to guarantee healthcare to every American. That's my agenda. That's why I'm in this business. And there are other Democrats that don't agree with me, and that's all right. They know what.
But they know where she stands, and she's winning the fight for the healthcare people, for the rights of people, for people to have better lives. And that's what she stands for. And she's not going to change her stance for anyone, but she knows that people deserve a better future. And guess what? She won her district by 87%. She got an 87% vote, and she had two challengers, right? She had a Republican and a Democratic challenger, and she wiped them out.
I'm after, and I know where they're at. But what I'm not going to do is allow my humanity to be erased, and I don't think that these newly elected officials should have theirs erased either.
I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, is you think people should give these people a chance and see what they do when they govern. And the challenge seems to be that you, as a leader of this movement, as one of the leaders, are going to have to make sure this doesn't define what the movement is about, I think.
Well, also listen to what they're saying now. Everyone's talking about pulling statements and things from years ago, but they just ran an election.
Exactly.
Listen to what they've been saying now. Listen to what they ran on now.
Exactly.
And the mandate and the message that they gave their voters, because that is their voters' expectation of them. And so I would say for every one statement from years ago that someone wants to pull up, please pull up 5 of what she's been discussing in her debates.
Exactly. Don't
pigeonhole. I want to talk about where things go from here, because I think there are so many hopes, probably from every person watching. Anybody out there who's concerned about what they're seeing from Grandpa in the Oval Office to happen right now, about what Democrats will get done. And I know you've said in the past you would support Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker, and you can tell me again if that remains the case. Senator Slotkin, who I would say is one of the Democrats that you may agree with on a lot, you may not agree with on everything, I suspect. She had this to say. She said, we need significant new leadership if people can't recognize that the game has fundamentally changed and can't adapt, and they need to make room for others who can. And she was referring to Jeffries, and she's, of course, in the Senate, to Schumer as well. What do you think about that? And what do you think?
They're trying to use a 2016 playbook, 2009 playbook, Obama playbook, a James Carville playbook from the old days. Keep using the same rules, the same playbook, playing the same game, and expect a different outcome, which is not possible, right?
Jeffries needs to do to prove that, if you think he needs to do anything to prove that?
Well, I think that anyone who says and issues a statement like this, I think it's important for them to get prescriptive about the changes that they want to see. I've been pretty clear about where I think the country should go. I think that we need to move forcefully to guarantee health care to every American. I think we need to move forcefully towards raising wages and taking on corporate corruption and profiteering.
I agree.
But there are a lot of folks who talk about change in leadership that don't necessarily articulate what their direction is. And
so, in other words, what's your master plan? Okay, we're going to switch everyone out. So what's your master plan? What's your playbook? What playbook are you going to use to make the Democratic Party better, or to improve and pass all the legislation that you want to pass? What's your master plan to replace whatever's there, right? Before you just knock it down and replace it, you got to have a plan, a master plan, or some type of direction where you're going to head. If not, it's going to just cause splintering and infighting. So they saying that the Democrats are a big tent, and now a lot of the Democrats are actually, doing the opposite, fighting against the new people coming in instead of giving them a chance.
So I would say that it's important that when we talk about change, we talk pretty specifically about the kind of changes that we want, because there are a lot of people in this country, and there are a lot of forces and lobbyists that want the Democratic Party to become even more pro-corporate than it is. And so not everyone talking about change is talking about the same thing. And so when I talk about change, I talk about orienting the Democratic Party to be unabashedly working class and to orient itself, again, around working class Americans. And I think that part of the conversation, because it's kind of in vogue to be talking about change, when people aren't prescriptive about what those changes need to be, I think we need to be asking further questions.
I read just a part of what she said. I take your point. Do you still feel, though, if Democrats went back to the House, that Hakeem Jeffries is the right person to lead?
I've engaged in many conversations with Leader Jeffries. And for me, and we have a broad caucus, right? For me, I have made very clear that one of my priorities in
this is where it gets controversial. This is where a lot of people are going to get upset that what she says. And then you have to be pragmatic, because a lot of the left is very theoretical, very philosophical, but you also have to balance it out with pragmatism. In other words, how applying it to the real world and what it looks like. If somebody else steps in and says, I want to be speaker, that's relatively better than Jeffries, then we'll take somebody that's better than Jeffries. But so far, there hasn't been anyone else that has said they're going to run or are willing to challenge Jeffries. So what are we going to do? Say we're going to vote him out and he's going to be there anyway? Unless somebody else steps up and says, I want to take the responsibility of speaker, which no one has. He has been unopposed for a very long time.
In determining and in a leader determination is securing public housing financing for New York City. And Leader Jeffries has made his prioritization for the residents of public housing very clear. And for that reason, I will be supporting Hakeem Jeffries for leader.
You know how this works. We have to take a very...
And that's when the ultra left, the ones that chase her in the movie theater, that says that she wasn't left enough. She's the most left person in the House of Representatives, the most left person in the whole Democratic Party that's in power or in leadership, right? She's the most left. And so people want her to be more left when everyone else in the Democratic Party is in the right or more moderate. So now she has more allies. She could possibly move more left, but she's as left as they will allow her to be, right? She's even more left than Bernie Sanders is, right?
Very quick break. You've been so generous with your time. We're going to stick around. First, I just want to play you something quite telling. You may have seen this, but it's been a busy day. In case people haven't seen it at home, that Speaker Johnson told a room full of Christian conservatives at the Faith and Freedom Coalition's annual summit today. It's quite something.
If we were to lose the midterms, heaven forbid, these Democrats, y'all, impeachment's not even the big concern. They will turn every committee of Congress into an investigative body, and they'll go after the president's family, the cabinet, his donors and friends. Half of you in this room will be targeted. I run the protection program. I'll take care of you, okay?
Wow. So he's offering mega donors protection from committees, protection from subpoenas, protection from having to be held accountable for anything they have done. So if they didn't have nothing to hide, they don't have, why are they so scared of the Democrats taking power, taking control? They have to face Congress or have oversight or have actual say in the policies. Listen to this response. She nails it. She nails the response.
I'm going to get your thoughts on that when we come back. We're back with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay, before the break, I played a clip of Little Mike Johnson, as I like to call him, laying out how a Democratic majority in Congress would investigate the president, the cabinet, donors, and friends. It all sounds, I think, probably to a lot of people watching and a lot of people out there who were infuriated by the level of corruption, pretty good. But you've also talked about a lot of things you deeply care about: healthcare, affordable housing. I know there are many other things. What do you see as the right priorities, balance of things, especially as it relates to investigations and accountability? Where does that fall and how much time should be spent on that?
I mean, of course, I spent many years on the oversight on the Oversight Committee in Congress, which is in charge of investigations during the first Trump administration.
Yes.
I helped, I helped on the investigation of Michael Cohen at the time, which led to a record settlement from Attorney General Tish James. But I think that it really is it genuinely is a situation of we can walk and chew gum at the same time. There are certain committees that I think will be spearheading real investigations into this administration. There has to be accountability, and it has to be because we cannot allow this level of corruption to consume our public service and our government ever again. And the only way that you allow that, or the only way that you set that precedent, is by...
And they were scared, right? That's why they didn't allow her on the Oversight Committee, right? They refused to back her. Even Jeffries himself didn't want to whip votes for her. They put in a senior member that didn't have as much experience, as much fire as her. They formally followed the rules exactly to the T because they didn't want her as oversight in the top Democratic oversight position, because she would cause chaos and havoc to Donald Trump. So that's the problem with the Democrat and the Democratic establishment, that we need people like this in leadership and in Congress to fight the good fight for the people, chosen by the people, leading the people, and representing the people.
Aggressive investigation and consequence. And oftentimes, some of the things that do come out in congressional investigations sometimes yield to either state pursuits, etc. And, Mike Johnson paints this as though it's some partisan witch hunt.
Might lead to lawsuits.
But if you don't want to be prosecuted for crimes, don't do crimes.
Yes.
And he's talking about running a protection racket.
Yes.
And we are already seeing that this Trump administration has run what some have called one of the largest pedophile protection programs in American history in the cover-up of the Epstein files. They violated the law when Congress mandated that they release the Epstein files. They're still hiding Epstein files, protecting some of the most gruesome behavior that is shocking to the human conscience. And so when Mike Johnson tells a group of wealthy donors, I'm the only thing standing between you and a consequence, that should rattle at the conscience of every American. What he wants to do is create, and rather not even create because it's already been created, but protect a class of impunity in America that say you can commit whatever crime, and so long as you pay a check to us, we will protect you. And that is a model of extortion in American politics.
They call it, right?
And you know what? That's their pitch.
My back, I scratch your back.
That's their pitch. But at the end of the day,
to raise money, they think they could buy everyone and everything.
Like I've always said, they have money, but we've got people.
Yeah,
and that's why our pitch needs to be focused on making the lives of everyday Americans better. Because they're sure as hell going to be making the lives of billionaires better and better and better every year. Our job is to make the lives of single mothers and working families and students trying to waitress through school and you know, mechanics trying to keep the business afloat. That needs to be our focus. And that's the only way that we're going to be able, I think, to turn this ship around, is through tackling on the extreme levels of inequality and corruption that persist in America.
She's cooking.
We're here, of course, in Washington, D.C. tonight. And J.D. Vance, I played this at the top of the show. Did you see what he had to say about Nixon and Watergate? I just have to ask you about this because I started the show talking about how I think he was telling on himself or themselves a little bit. I mean, the notion that if Watergate happened tomorrow, it would be like a 12-hour news story is quite a statement to make. Obviously, he was down playing Watergate, which is insane to begin with.
Right, well,
but what do you make
was not
of
a big deal.
That statement? What is he trying to do there? What do you think about that?
You know what?
Watergate's not a big deal compared to the stuff we've done. You know what I'm saying? Why would you? You understand what I'm saying? Why would you, like, come on, really? That's like a confession, like she said.
I think it's I think the statement is fascinating, and there are many different ways to say why it's interesting. Some of it is that it's true, right? But I think what it reveals more is about what J.D. Vance's vision for America is that he wants more of the same. He doesn't want anything to change in this country. He wants to continue the reality that corruption is, you know, banal, normal. And he loves the way that the country is being governed right now. He loves that you can start an illegal war and make tons of people rich and, you know, send Americans into harm's way, and that it'll barely be a blip on people's radar. He loves that we can engage in record levels of corruption and get away with it. And so in that statement, it's less about the acknowledgement of the reality, but it's that his vision for the future is exactly the same, and that your life won't change so long as he's in charge.
Yes, Christina.
You are very well aware that you were on so many lists for all sorts of things. New York Senate, president, all of these things. I know you're not going to make news here tonight on this show. You're focused on the midterm elections. But what do you think this moment requires of leaders that might be different from when you came into office 8 years ago?
I think that
this is the conclusion. Just
when I first came in, it was during the first Trump administration. And what so many people wanted was to stop the chaos and to bring us back to where we were. And I think that, you know, that was a huge part of what unified the country in electing President Biden is this idea of restoring the soul of America. I think we're now in a new time. And I think there is greater recognition of the brokenness that led to President Trump in the first place, which is that this growing inequality yields to authoritarianism, and that economic instability and the collapse of democracy are intertwined. And I think back then, a lot of what I was maligned for and told was extreme is now almost seen as quite common wisdom. These billionaires like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all of these folks that have been supercharging the corruption of this administration, dismantling the very foundations of democracy, have proven that you cannot have extreme levels of income inequality and a functioning, thriving democracy at once. We have to choose. And the good news in that is that making the lives of working class Americans better means that our democracy gets stronger. And I think that is what our focus needs to be. But I do think that that will require a choice
hit it right on
in
the
a
head.
system that is controlled by big money and dominated by large donors. I think that many people will have to make a difficult decision to walk away from and limit and rein in the excesses of a campaign finance system that wants to purchase Congress.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I think nothing has reminded us of all of what you've said than the corruption that we have seen in this administration more. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent interview, right? Excellent interview, right? Excellent interview. And so this is the moderate Democrats' response. Moderate Democrats strike back. 15 House Democratic members and candidates are signing on to the Promise to America, a pledge meant to unite centrists and promote capitalism over socialism. So it's an anti-socialism caucus or anti-socialism group within the Democratic House, right? They're going to promote capitalism over socialism. Among the signers are Representatives Tom Suozzi, Adam Gray, Janelle Bynum from Oregon. Adam Gray from California, Tom Suozzi from New York, Christy McDonald-River from Michigan, Susie Lee from Nevada, Maggie Goodlander from New Hampshire, Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey, Laura Gillen from New York, Don Davis from North Carolina, Vicente Gonzalez from Texas, and congressional candidates Killen, Marlene Galan Woods, and Bobby Pulido, right? And they all have something in common that maybe a lot of people would not like to know, but we need to know, right? They have something all in common, right? Right? They have all something in common is I lost the post, but I'll show you something real fast. Representative Summer Lee speaking out about big money in politics, and she introduced legislation, a bill with Bernie Sanders to
that millionaires, billionaires, corporations, corporate interests, special interests would no longer be able to get around the guardrails, the limitations that everyday individuals like you and I have. They'll no longer be able to get around the $3,500 limit, because $3,500, that's not a little bit of money, or $5,000 for a PAC. They would have the same limitations as everybody else, effectively ensuring that they would no longer be able to pour money into these dark super PACs that oftentimes have no accountability. They have no accountability to people, no transparency, and they're able to essentially spend limitless money in our elections. They would have to work like everybody else. It would essentially free our democracy, free our campaigns, and ensure that voters are able to pick their representatives and not their representatives pick them. It is critically important that we move on this bill. Yes, ending Citizens United is our ultimate goal. And we recognize that there are many steps to that. But right now, we can take a step to ensure that super PACs, that super billionaires, are no longer able to buy our election. And we have to call it what it is. If we will have a democracy, we have to reject an oligarchy. If we're going to have a democracy, we have to reject big moneyed interests overwhelming the everyday people in my district, in Senator Sanders' district, and every district in between.
Same message, right? So why are the moderate Democrats aligning themselves with the Republican point of view? That they're against socialism, that they're against everything else that people are doing.
From the podium.
Let me add it to the stage.
Forgive me for repeating it. But the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, it sounds so innocuous, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. Don't say that. This is their platform. Listen, this is actually quotes from their platform that they published, I think, about a day or two ago. You can find this on the internet. Okay, here's just a sample of what they're about. They put this on paper. They're saying the quiet things out loud. Abolish the Electoral College, replace the two-party system with a multi-party democracy. Expand the House of Representatives, implement proportional representation and ranked choice voting in all elections. Establish public ownership of the largest corporations and essential industries to ensure democratic control and accountability to the people. Abolish ICE and grant amnesty for all. End sanctions on Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran. Free Palestine. Quote, for a free Palestine with Jerusalem as its capital. End all military and economic aid to Israel. Prosecute U.S. and Israeli leaders responsible for the genocide in Gaza. Abolish the carceral state. Quote, redirect police and prison funding to public services.
I think most people
towards abolishing the carceral forces of the capitalist state. Y'all, it goes on and on and on. Defund the Department of War, replace the president and the Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen and subordinate to Congress, which they're hoping to take over. And the last one is abolish the Senate. Now, some of you may agree with that, but don't, just leave that one there. Okay. It's fine. I'm kidding. I love my colleagues over there.
Yeah, see? Let me see if I can find it. I lost the post. Well, the American Promise Group is actually, right, led by these group of people are actually, let's see. I gotta look for it. I'll show you right now, right? So the Promise Group, that they have a pledge, they have a website, they have a whole website, right? The Promise to America, right? Is comprised of people that are supported and endorsed by the Israeli lobby, right? Do you hear what I just said? Let's share this. All the people on this new PAC, they created a website, they're getting a whole bunch of money. It's a way to siphon money from AIPAC. They started a new organization, Promise to America, to defeat socialism. And the Don Davis, North Carolina, $4 million from AIPAC. Josh Geiheimer, $2,291,197 from AIPAC. Janelle Bynum, almost 1.5 million. Susie Lee, almost $1 million. Tom Swazi, almost 600,000. Vicente Gonzalez, almost 400,000. Laura Gillen, almost 400,000 of AIPAC money. Christine McDonald, Rivet, almost 400,000 of AIPAC money. Maggie Goodlander, almost 300,000 of AIPAC, and Adam Gray, almost $40,000 of AIPAC. And for these races in all these states, these are tiny districts that have an outside influence in Congress. So all that money, that's a lot of money for a tiny district that doesn't really have that much money. And imagine how much they're going to spend for them to push them and promote them. Israel lobby totals. All these people are pro-Israel. Is this a new way for AIPAC to siphon money? The Promise to America website, check it out and make a determination. So who do you want representing you? Do you want AOC representing you? Or do you want these people representing you that are just taking the pro-Israel foreign government lobbyist money, right? Or do you want a person that's going to stand up for your values, for workers, for the rights of workers? And who is more scary, right? Thank you for watching. My name is Celso Garcia. Contribute, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, support the channel on YouTube, Twitch, X, Facebook, Instagram, and Substack. Hit the like, follow button in all these channels. They're below the names I use. And thank you for watching. And let's expose the truth all the time, no matter the consequences. Thank you so much. And I'm supported by you, the people, funded by you, the people. So feel free to make donations and share and like the program. Thank you so much. And all the supporters that have been supporting this launching of this program. I haven't been around that long, but I've been fighting the good fight, like always. Have a good night, have a good day, have a good evening, and have to the lose. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.